Hi everyone, I'm Gail Carrier, founder of OurTism. Welcome to Starlight Talk. This evening, Chloe is a little bit under the weather, so I will be filling in tonight. I'm her mom. She is behind the scenes going to coach me through this because this is my first time solo. So we're going to wait just a little bit till people start to join. Tonight we're going to talk about accommodations and 501, 504 plans and IEPs. So I'll just give it a couple minutes. Tell you a little bit about OurTism. That it's a nonprofit that I started with my daughters, Chloe and Lillian, and have some fabulous people that have joined us. Annette Lombardi and her daughter, Charlie Zucker. And we help support young adults with an Asperger profile to be the best they can be. We have all sorts of things going on there that I'll talk about later. So I think we'll start. So I'm going to tell you a little story that happened for us and my first experience with an IEP meeting.
What's an IEP?
What's an IEP meeting? What does it stand for?
Individualized Education.
Individual Educational Plan. Thank you. I've got so used to the acronym that I forgot what it stood for. So it's a plan to help your child in school academically to thrive. So Lillian was 10. And we didn't know that she had Asperger's at the time. She was suffering from what turned out to be Crohn's disease and Asperger's, but we didn't know it. So I was having troubles. She was having such pain in her stomach, and she was having anxiety going to school, and I really couldn't get her to go to school much. And so the principal and her teacher said, let's put together a plan. My husband and I went into this meeting, and basically they told us what horrible parents we were and that we needed to do more to get her to school, and we were doing her such a disservice. They even came up with this lovely term called schoolophobia. I left there feeling so awful, so distraught. That I obviously was doing something so wrong because everybody else could get their child to school. No one else seemed to have these, anxiety attacks with their daughters. And so when I left, I was like, okay, we're just horrible parents. Along the way, I contacted someone that I had met earlier that was an educational specialist, and I called her and I said, look, I think we're going to homeschool Lillian. I don't know what to do. I can't get her to school. And she talked to me about home hospital care. So I'm like, what's that? So there was the start of my education and realizing that the school was not giving me all the information that I was entitled to. So Lily was entitled to stay home and be homeschooled by the Manhattan Beach School District. That was where we lived, in Manhattan Beach. And I wouldn't have known this. So I started really educating myself with Melanie's help and researching and realizing the schools are not there to help you. They're not on your side. They're on their teacher's side. Excuse me. That unless you tell them what you need and what you want. Now, I'm sure there are exceptions. But in my experience with meeting other families, it's more, they're not forthcoming. So I would start with, if you don't know, if you have an IEP or a 504 plan meeting set up to educate yourself, and if there isn't time, and sometimes there isn't, see if you can get an advocate, because your children are entitled to so much. Now, some schools may not be able to offer it, and then you can talk to them about alternative schools. But mostly, once you know what those accommodations are, and I will post, I did post something on our Facebook page earlier in the week about accommodations, and I'll repost it tonight here. And in it, I do talk about a little bit about our story, and a huge list, really, of general accommodations.
What are accommodations?
Okay, accommodations. Thank you, Chloe. See, Chloe is here, and she's guiding me through the definitions and guiding me here. So accommodations are tools that your child may need to help them succeed. Some examples are, for most of our kids, the big one would be extra time on tests, taking your tests in a quiet space. And that usually they'll give. It's whether your child needs time, time and a half, double time. I mean, those are the things you guys can work out. But really, that's what you're, and I can go over more of the list in a few minutes, of how they succeed. And a perfect example is Chloe switched schools. And hi, this is Benji. This is Chloe's service dog. Yeah, he's a good boy. And he wants to be on our show tonight. A really good example is when Chloe switched schools from private school to public school. They said her accommodations were all in place. We met with the special ed team and gave them a list of the accommodations that work. And as she's going to classes, the teachers are not giving her accommodations. They're saying she doesn't need it. Then she goes to her counselor and they're like, no, you're getting them. And she's coming back, no, I'm not. And it took almost 6 weeks to get them back in place. We had to call an emergency IEP meeting because no one at the school was talking to each other. And it was so apparent in that 6 weeks that her grades were going down C's, D's, and even F's. And as soon as those accommodations came back, she was back to an A, B student. So they really make a difference in our children's education. They're bright, they're brilliant, they just learn differently. And it's not giving them an easy way out. You know, the material is the same.
Also, accommodations don't have to be completely academic. It could be like a change in uniform, a different kind of chair, the ability to
can you, I hope you all can hear her because she is talking. So talk loud okay. So what Chloe said, if you didn't hear, was it doesn't have to be academic. It can be a chair. It could be, what else did you say? A change in uniform. Being able to stand up instead of sitting down. So there's all sorts of different accommodations. I mean, some of the other ones, again, I'm going to list it. I'm going to have it at the end here. Large print on textbooks, a locker with an adapted block. You know, if they need a key instead of a combo. Note taker, adapted writing utensils. Maybe they need a keyboard, or they can't use pencil, they can only use pen, or vice versa. What else? There's books on tape. So there's visual, there's test accommodations, there's behavioral modifications, breaks between tasks, queuing, having contingency plans, you know, so that your child knows that if something's distressful, there's a plan in place that, you know what, I need to go to the learning center. I need to go to the library, and that's okay. So that's some of it in a nutshell. Are there any questions? Let's see, we have quite a few people on here. Wendy Brown, thank you. You're very sweet. And hi, Alex. Judy, yes, Benji is cute. And hi, Linda. And I'm thinking my dad might be there too. So nice to see you all. Thank you for joining us tonight. Does anybody have any questions, situations that you guys have been in that you want to share or need some advice on? You know, the biggest thing I could say is to be prepared, because again, the schools are just not forthcoming, and that's hard when you don't know what you don't know, and that's a position I was in a lot. So you know, talk to other moms that have gone through IEPs. I know I'm saying not a lot. I'm going to try to stop that.
You want to talk about college?
College, that's a good idea. So accommodations can also follow you into college differently than an IEP. The schools honor a lot of the accommodations, but there will be, well, it depends on the school, because Chloe did have some modifications of tests, which a lot of schools won't do. One of her schools did. She has where, so in multiple choice, which multiple choice tests are awful. They're designed to trick you, okay? Whether you are neurotypical or on the spectrum, they're designed to trick you. So Chloe had a really difficult time when there was all of the above or none of the above. So she had those removed. So there had to be an answer within the test, correct? So her teacher was fabulous. So sometimes it was only two. Instead of changing the test, he would just take the all or none. So that would leave her basically a choice between one or two. So she was very fortunate that this teacher did it this way. He didn't add anything more tricky. But a lot of colleges may not do that particular one, but it can't hurt to ask. But extended time on your test?
If you can't get it from accommodations, you can talk to your teacher or professor, and a lot of times they'll do it anyway. So in case you didn't hear that, if accommodations department, the special education department in your college doesn't do it, you can still talk to your teacher, and sometimes they'll work with you. Sometimes you'll find your teachers will work with you more, and then sometimes you'll find your teachers don't work with you at all. It just really depends on their personality. But extended time on tests will follow you. Note-taking can follow you. There's different tools you can record. Some I think you can record your lectures, note-taking, but assistance is definitely available. Some schools are better than others. So research your colleges really well, but don't be surprised even when you research them and you ask the right questions, you don't always get, by law, they have to they have to have accommodations for the learning disabled and learning differently if you have a diagnosis, but it doesn't mean they're good at it.
So, anything else?
Specialized housing.
Oh, that's right. So in college, you also can ask for specialized housing, whether it's closer to campus or you need a bathtub, or singles is often really useful, and they accommodate that. So, you know, if there's certain things that make your life easier, ask for it. And in college, you have to advocate for yourself. Your parents can help you set up things, but they don't want to hear from us. You need to be able to advocate for yourself. That's key for college. And I would, if there's parents out here, I would start as young as they are, to start having them help advocate for themselves if possible, so that by the time they're in college, or not college, just in life, honestly, they can speak for what they need. And that's what we do at OurTism. I mean, that's really one of the things is to really help these young adults and adults, you know, advocate for themselves, what they need in the workplace. There's accommodations that you can get in the workplace, and that's things you got to decide, you know, whether you disclose or not. That's really a personal decision, but there's accommodations that you can ask for and are entitled to in certain positions, even in the workforce. So, okay, Chloe, can you see questions? I don't see them, but it looks like there's questions. Okay, I'm just gonna look on the phone, off of the phone. Because I see that there's questions, but I can't get to them to see them. So give me a minute, and let me see what I can. There they are. They're not showing up on my screen. I apologize. Okay. Okay, Judy asked, what is their reason for not following the IEP? If you could clarify, do you mean the school not to follow the IEP, or the person who has the IEP? The school not to follow the IEP would be that they just don't know how, honestly. Teachers also would tell Chloe and Lillian, it's just a quiz. It's just a short quiz. It's 10 questions. You can take it in class. You don't have to go, you know, to the Learning Center. You don't have to have extended time on this one. This is a quick one. So it's really just not getting, you know, what their learning differences are. And so that would be mostly the reason why they don't follow. I don't think they're doing it just because they don't want to. I think it's really, they just don't get it. And let's see. Anastasia, yeah, you got time and a half, or I think Chloe in time and a half. So you have an extra, so when you take a test, what that means is, so if the test is an hour, you have an hour, you have an extra hour, right?
What?
Okay, math was not my thing. Okay, time and a half. Double time would be if it's an hour test, you have 2.
So if it's an hour test and you have time and a half, it's an hour and a half.
Right.
If you have double time, then it's 2 hours.
Okay, so that's, and Lillian had double time too, and Chloe had time and a half, I believe, Or do I have it reversed? I think that's what it was. Let's see. It's going to be a fight always. Unfortunate. So Alex is telling her experience, I believe. Oh God, I can't. It's going to be a fight. Unfortunately, even in college, students with disabilities will have to defend themselves to get their accommodations, especially with an invisible disability, which that's another thing to talk about is autism or Asperger's, the high functioning autism is, you know, really a invisible disability. And so many of our kids and you all, you know, may not present like, you may present as neurotypical. And so there's a lot of not believing that you need it and you're faking it. And you're right. Oh my gosh, UC Berkeley has an entire program for spectrum disorders. I'm gonna have to look into that. That's wonderful. I love that. So Judy, yeah, you're my story. We have the same story. Thank you all for these questions. I'm sorry I didn't see them earlier. For some reason, they don't show up on my computer. So I'm looking now on my phone where they show up. Anastasia, hi, can I call you Stacy? Hi, Stacy. Had to provide lab results for my levels being off for, yeah, I know. Some of these professors really don't, I mean, Chloe had a hard time with a couple that just didn't want to give her accommodations. They didn't think she needed it. And in high school, Lillian had one teacher that just was really tough. And we were still getting used to the diagnosis. So I didn't understand enough. Lillian and Chloe weren't diagnosed with Asperger's until they were 16. So I didn't know all the things they needed to be able to help them advocate. So it was really difficult. And Lillian had one English teacher in particular that it was very difficult for her. Sorry, I'm just gonna fall. I think I got most of the questions. These are great questions. Thank you. Thank you. You see any more, Chloe?
Judy asked, did Chloe ever feel self-conscious about the accommodation?
Well, I don't think so, right? No, neither of my girls, Lillian or Chloe, really felt uncomfortable. You know, when they were diagnosed, we because it was a long process and they were misdiagnosed. So getting the diagnosis was really a positive for us. It kind of gave us a reason and an answer, and now a place to look for things. So finding out what could help them, I think, felt good. And knowing that these, you know, these tools in school really worked, especially for Chloe. Lillian, the way they taught in school worked for Lillian most of the time. She's a slow processor, so her homework she had trouble with finishing her homework. But Chloe, it was dramatic, the change, once she had accommodations. And the accommodations started before the diagnosis because they were misdiagnosed. So even with that, her grades soared as soon as she started receiving the support, the proper support in school. I think, you know, she didn't feel smart, and she was so smart. I always told her how smart she was, but she didn't feel smart for a long time. And it took her a long time to realize that she was brilliant. And I think a lot of you see that, and how articulate she is, and her writing is so amazing. So no, and we've been so open with our journey through this Asperger life and world, which is why we started OurTism, that I don't think that they ever felt embarrassed by it or uncomfortable by it, except for the just being uncomfortable, because sometimes, well, a lot of times having autism is uncomfortable. So I think that would be their mostly, right? Getting the nod from Chloe. Poor baby does not feel good. So then the next question is, so did other kids understand why she had accommodations? Both my kids, again, were really honest about it, but I think some kids probably thought she was getting, well, wasn't it, I think in middle school they thought
we were given,
yeah, they thought that they were getting the answers, the kids that were leaving to take their test, because they all did really well and were getting super high scores, and they're like, they're getting the answers, they must. So they've gotten that, but I think because they were so honest and open with the difficulties they have and why they were leaving, I don't think that there was any issues. Did I miss anything else?
Did you and your girls decide to disclose the diagnosis? Why or why not? Did they talk openly about it?
Where?
From Judy.
Oh, so why, you know what, so again, going through they were 16, so going through the process of getting diagnosed, you know, they were old enough to know that they're being tested to see if they had Asperger's. They weren't babies, so we couldn't hide anything. Not that we would have, but we couldn't. And so we just presented it in a really positive way, that, you know, not much was going to change except for things that we would help them. And then, you know, we just have more information. But so when we got the information and now we knew what to do, I don't think it, you know, it was ever an issue. Again, I think they went to school, and as soon as they got the diagnosis and was like, hey, we have Asperger's and this is what it means, and their kids and their friends were asking what it was, and to be perfectly honest, there was one of their friends that started wondering if she had it, and that's how she kind of found out she had Asperger's, because she didn't know. So they were really honest and felt good about who they were. I mean, sometimes I wished I had a little bit more of that. That they were really open always. Lillian's on there. It is necessary to consistently educate the teachers and the administrator why accommodations. I cannot get to the rest every time I try. Why accommodations you are eligible for. Bring paperwork to support your requests. So yeah, you know, every year, and you've got to keep applying. And you know what, okay, this is the other thing I suggest. Ask for everything. Okay, you may not need everything, but ask for everything, because then it's there and it's on paper, whether it's at, you know, elementary school, high school, middle school, college. You know, if you don't need double time and a half, but you're entitled to it, ask for it. Then it's there in your hip pocket if you want it. It's so much easier to not use it and have it than to need it and it's not there. So that would be another thing that I just tell parents, and kids or young adults, ask for it all. You don't have to use it. So that was another thing that we've learned. You see anything else, Chloe? You guys are great. These are great questions. I'm not as good at talking like this as Chloe, so I was a little nervous. So thank you all for making this very easy to be able to answer your questions. And this is how I started my journey. Is I started having, once I started educating myself with all the things that my girls needed and the bumps that we had, I wanted other parents and those on the, with autism not to have to go through some of the things that we had to, and to make the road a lot easier. So that's what we do. And we're going to be starting our first parent support group, parent and caregiver support group. And that's starting September 13th, Thursday night, 7 to 9 p.m. at our center in Redondo Beach. So I'd love for some of you to be there. We also have our adult support group. That is the opposite Thursday, so it goes every other Thursday for those with an Asperger profile. And you don't have to be diagnosed to have a diagnosis, proper one. And when is the next one? I don't have. Next Thursday. Is it next Thursday? I don't have my calendar. But everything's up on our website. So we have two support groups, one for parents and caregivers, one for those adults on the spectrum. We have, I'm working with Chloe. We're putting together a parent workshop kind of to educate parents on what Asperger's is and how to help support your child. And Chloe and Chloe's going to be putting together a workshop for those on the spectrum on how to help themselves. So look forward to that in the next coming months. So check out our website, OurTism.com, and subscribe to the website so you can get newsletters and keep up with everything OurTism. Chloe does this every Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. And next week is Danny Rady from Asperger Experts will be joining her. And he is spectacular. He changed our world. So he is a young man with Asperger's, and his journey has been incredible. He started this program, Asperger Experts, helping parents understand their Asperger child, and the way he explained it and the way Chloe then explained it and Lillian have made it possible to understand them. And so we're super excited to have him, and we are so grateful to consider him a friend. So that'll be really exciting next week. What else? I don't know. Is there any more questions, Chloe? Okay. So we might wrap this one up a little early. Thank you all so much for joining us. And again, go to the website to find out everything OurTism. And Chloe will be back next week. So as she says, what do you say? Stay colorful. Bye. Thank you.